Just waiting for them to play the video. And in the meantime, feel free to read the resolution.
Yeah, that's me. Back in kindergarten when I used to enjoy learning. Preschool still wasn't too bad, but by the second grade, I was a lost case. School just always made me feel like a butterfly trapped in a jar. Now I'm in high school, or sometimes I am. I know it, the teachers know it, I have no future. Except things are starting to change. This new teacher and her weird modern educational methods. Maybe I could even like school?
So the aim of my committee's resolution is focused on creating equal education throughout all of Europe. So it shouldn't really matter where in Europe you live. In the Cult Committee, we think that everyone should have the opportunity to get an equal education and an equal foundation for learning and to develop their skills. We arrived at our resolution through a lot of hard work, but very, very constructive discussions. I think we all unanimously could create OCs and ICs that were constructive and that we all thought were necessary for European education and the fair and equal opportunity of everyone to get a good education. Most difficult part regarding our resolution was what the EU actually can do, because education is something that is very subjected to each country's sovereignty. We often came into conflict when trying to balance the EU's role and respecting each nation's sovereignty.
Amazing. Now we're gonna move on to the proposition speech delivered by the proposing committee, which is called ready? If yes, you're recognized.
Thank you. Members of the board, delegates, everyone. Good morning, and I'm delighted to be opening the second day of General Assembly and the last day of the 92nd International Session of the European Youth Parliament, EYP, a place where I'm sure each and every one of you have learned more about yourself, about perspectives, and about the world in a political context. In most cases, you've discovered the fascinating world of EYP through school, a place where you've gained knowledge and insight. Now, imagine a world where the development you've gained through school is taken away from you, your creativity taken away from you, your right to a fair, equal, comprehensive education taken away. Now stop imagining, because this is the reality for several citizens across EU member states. Current education systems across Europe do not cater to the ever-changing globalized world we live in, leaving us, the generation whose onus it is on to change the world, ill-equipped with the skills needed to thrive, stunted, and left with the question, how can we possibly rethink today and shape tomorrow? Education as a sustainable development goal is imperative, forming the foundations of cooperation, understanding, and global peace. We, as the Committee on Culture and Education, aim to change the face of education across the EU for the better and foster a self-actualized society, eliminating social disparities. The core concept of our aim is threefold: equality, fair opportunities, and the well-being of students. We believe that by instilling these three aspects as core elements of all EU member state education systems, we can promote the skills required in today's fast-changing world. The world is adapting, and we need to adapt with it. The building blocks for change start with education. Can't be overlooked, can't be ignored. I urge each and every one of you today to consider how we as a committee propose to take education out of the industrial age and guide it on its journey to the 21st century. Thank you so much for listening.
Amazing. Thank you, Colt, for this very inspirational speech. Next up, we shall move on to the opposition speeches. So do we have any takers? Please raise your team's hand. And the first opposition speech will go to NV2. You're recognized.
Thank you, honorable members of the board, fellow delegates, dearest officials. I would like to personally thank Colt for making such a constructive and concise resolution. However, I would also like to share a main concern I have with them and all of you. You talk quite a bit about well-being, but personally, I don't really see that humanitarian approach to the resolution. Today, we've been seeing schools introducing courses on kindness, which one could say is a necessary skill going forward. However, Cold Committee has a more practically oriented utilitarian approach to it, which I'm not 100% sure fits in with the rest of the resolution, how they would like to approach this. You talk quite a bit about healthy competition and how can we serve a globalized market. However, if there is something from the industrial era that has stayed with us until today and could potentially harm students along the way, would be connecting employment and education to such an extent. Although that is not something that is inherently part of education and a concept that has failed us quite a bit. Of course, we do, and I think all of us applaud peer-to-peer education, but your lack of mentioning on non-typical approaches and this overly connected relationship between education and employment is something that I am a bit concerned about because of education being something deeper and higher that usually does not need employment to actually make self-realized citizens out of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, NV1 and NV2. I'm sorry for this constructive and insightful speech. So next up, we shall move on to the second opposition speech, which will be delivered by the Committee of Libe. Libe, you're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. Distinguished guests, honorable members of the board, Madam President, and fellow delegates. First of all, I want to congratulate Colt on tackling the faulty education system by acknowledging that in the status quo, it kills our future's creativity and doesn't prepare them for the ever-evolving labor market. But secondly, what I've noted is that you failed to address the root of the problem. It is not enough to change the curriculum, for the quality of education mostly depends on the teachers. In the status quo, most countries, especially the Eastern ones, fail to recognize the importance of legitimizing teachers' jobs as an elite profession. Most countries vastly underpay their teachers, and they are extremely overworked due to big classes and excessive after-school workload. This results in most young talented professionals disregarding the teaching profession and instead turning to other, more prestigious careers. What we have to recognize is that the quality coming from a quality teacher coming from an educated background can make even the most boring subject fascinating. On the other hand, even if the curriculum that you're suggesting is top tier, but the teacher remains overworked and underpaid, it's all for nothing as it won't be successfully transmitted. Dear European Parliament, although this resolution comes from a goodwill place, it fails to acknowledge the importance of funding and innovation directed at teachers, the makers of a future. Therefore, I invite you to strongly reconsider this proposition's aims. Thank you.
Thank you, Libe, for this well-timed speech. Now we're going back to the proposing committee. So is Colt ready to respond to the opposition speeches? If yes, please raise your Zoom hand and your team's hand, and you're recognized. You have 1.5 minutes.
Thank you for the recognition and thank you for all your points. They're definitely very thought out and very helpful in our discussions. I wanted to thank NV2 first for mentioning well-being, as that is a really, really important aspect in our resolution. And I would like you to point you to OC number 4, where we talk about equipping students with dedicated mental well-being classes and regular checkups to make sure that we are safeguarding them to the best possible way. And I'd also like you to direct you to OC number 3, where we approach the humanitarian approach of ensuring healthy discussions about mental health and being able being able to identify the problems within education that impact people's well-being. But in order to do this, first we must discuss the issues and acknowledge them. And the best people to ask are students, and that's what our resolution focuses on. And in regards to equal opportunities, we believe we need to connect, if we connect this to education and employment, we have implementations such as the key competence for lifelong learning in primary and secondary education on OC number 6, which ensure equal opportunities for all students, ensuring that we consider the well-being, the future prospects of every individual involved, no matter your background. And going to the second point from Liebe, thank you very much for this very, very important point. You talked about the root of the problem and how it's not considered. I would urge you to look at OC number 5, where we encourage an open dialogue to discuss problems. And we're aware our resolution is all about starting with education. And we believe in order to even attempt to answer problems, we have to focus on education. And we have to respect that countries have sovereignty, and we can't impose a universal pay, for example, for teachers, because we have to respect a country's sovereignty and come about this topic in a very, very sensitive.
I'm sorry, I have to cut you off, but it's fine. You can share your response on the next round. Thank you, though. Now we shall move on to the first round of open debate. But before I recognize, yeah, sorry, my voice hasn't helped me this morning. I don't know why. So before I recognize a committee, just a small announcement that there has been a small change in structure. So the first round will be as usual, where we're going to focus on the aims of the resolution. And the second and third round will be on the policy proposals, while the last round, that is the fourth round, you can target both the aims and the policy proposals. Of course, I'll remind you again later on, just so everyone is on the same page, okay? So the first point for the first round of open debate will go to Econ 3. You're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. So you mentioned in your because clauses that 10.2% of young Europeans in 2018 completed at most a lower secondary school education. However, looking back in your political statement, none of your aims seem to address this topic in the sense of aiming to ensure that all young Europeans do end up finishing school and perhaps preventing high school dropouts. Providing fair opportunity does not address this, because giving everybody the same opportunity does not mean that they will take them. These people could have dropped out of school because of family situations. So how are you planning to protect these youngsters?
Thank you, Econ 3, for providing a point about the aims, not providing a proper solutions or approach on students dropping out from school and how you can protect this from happening. Thank you for that. Next point will go to Seda. Seda, you're recognized. We have a DR. I'm sorry, we have a DR from Econ 2. Is that correct? Yes. Econ 2, you're recognized.
And to add on to the delegate's point about dropouts, I have not seen personally anything in the resolution that aims to offer some sort of way in which students will be more engaged in school, even if there's a means for them to do more work or become more productive in school. That doesn't necessarily mean that they will drop out. And unfortunately, the dropout rates are much higher in the lower ends on the economic spectrum.
Amazing, thank you, Econ 2. So yeah, as promised, we're going to recognize Seda. Seda, you're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. I would like to mention that I see that in your aims, you also want to promote students' creativity. However, I don't really see this problem be tackled.
I'm 17 years old and I live in Athens, Greece. Well,
Um,
Okay. You can continue.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I see in your aims that you recognize the creativity of the student is being discouraged. However, I don't see the problem getting tackled by the general direction of your OC. So I would like a response to that, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Sada. Next point, we'll go to Liebe. Liebe, you're recognized.
Thank you for your recognition. Okay, so in your aim, you seem to have tackled almost every relevant issue. The only exception being the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the negative impact that it has on the school system and the students themselves. So I think that you should have mentioned it because the pandemic has drastically changed the learning system, increasing inequalities between students and affecting their well-being and preventing them from having opportunities, as you state in your aim. So I think that your general approach on the issue should have been focused also on the huge role that the pandemic is having in the everyday life of the students, as well as your policy proposals. Thank you for the floor.
Thank you, Liebe, for sharing this very relevant point on how COVID-19 has affected the education system and the students in general, and pointing out that this is lacking in COLT's aims. We have a DR, who's from Econ 1. Yes, Econ 1. Is that related to Liebe's point?
Yes, it is
Um,
directly related.
okay.
Adding on to what my fellow delegates said, there is a great disparity between the technology being available to children living in the countryside, and I see in your aims that they are not really included. For example, in Balkan countries, there are a lot of children who live on the equivalent of €2 a week, and they do not afford phones, tablets, or laptops in order to attend classes, and teachers are not willing to go to school because of the COVID pandemic. So I want to see something addressed about that.
Mhm. Thank you, Econ 1, for further emphasizing the point on COVID-19. Thank you. So the last point for this round will go to Pesh. Pesh, you recognized.
Yes, thank you so much for recognizing me, and thank you, Carl, for all the work you've done. But while reading your because clauses, I got the impression that it is completely unacceptable for teaching curriculums to be friendly towards specific religious and habits and principles they said. So I'd like you to clarify the last point of your because clauses and tell me why the school and system mustn't be flexible for people and their beliefs. Thank you.
Thank you, Pesh. Now we're going to go back to the proposing committee. Just to summarize, there was a point about the aims not dealing with people that tend to protect students from dropping out from school, as well as that the aims of because clauses do not mention anything about how they can protect students and the education system during the COVID-19 pandemic. If Cole is ready, you can start and respond to the first round of open debate. Cole, do you recognize?
I want to thank all my fellow delegates for their amazing points that they've introduced today. And I want to start by the first one about the dropouts. Yes, we cannot ensure that each individual will not drop out, but in our OC number 2, we are encouraging that they will learn what they prefer. So this way, they will maybe not want to drop out if they have the curriculum and they made it themselves, and organizing cross-country conferences so they can share their knowledge as well, and maybe promote some their creativity so they can choose whatever they want to be educated on, and the school would be more creative in that way. Also about creativity. We've also mentioned this in our second OC because we're saying about their innovative education programs so they can choose whatever they want, and about, for example, they can choose their arts or any of the other matters. The third one for COVID-19, thanks for mentioning that. And we may have not specifically said COVID-19, but we've taken the importance of mental health and digitalization in this matter. And we've mentioned several points about mental health, about implementing some well-being classes, talking about them because the COVID-19 has severely affected mental health in our education and of course all of us. And also about digitalization, which can be also connected with the first point of dropouts. We are also mentioning in our OC number 9 that it is important that we educate members and we fund necessary technologies and courses that would be implemented. Yes, that would be implemented for all schools. And the last point was about mustn't be flexible to religions and beliefs. We do not condemn that we shouldn't talk about religious, but some teachers may have some ideologies that would impose on students and would not make the students think more critically, which we also mentioned in a point about critical thinking, that it should be more introduced. Teach teachers. Thank you.
It's fine. You did great, and thank you for responding to most of the points in such a short time. That was a great job. Thank you. Okay, so before we move on to the second round of open debate and the presentation of the policy proposals, actually, never mind. Let's move on to the presentation of policy proposals. So is Cold ready to present the policy proposals of the resolution? If yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you for recognition. Before I start, I would like you to bring your attention to the importance of our topic, as it has proven its worth during this session, not only through allowing us to educate ourselves together on the theme of sustainability, but also through showing us that without education, striving for change proves useless. And in fact, I do not think that there was one committee that has not stressed the relevance of education in their resolution, which once again illustrates how essential it is in shaping tomorrow. But to quote what has been universalized by popular culture, with great power comes great responsibility. Our committee has undergone several discussions and debates on how to approach the solutions to such an important matter and how to enhance the pressure for improvement of European education systems while still trusting individual education ministries to guide this process in their states, as they are the ones most sensible to the existing systems and have the possibility of aligning changes with the country's specific needs and cultures. And we realized how harmful rush reforms are to students. We did not want to call European states to blindly revolutionize their education, but wisely consider on how to adapt it. And that is why we have not diminished the importance of diversity in regards to educatory methods and systems within Europe. And we realize that this diversity is part of our cultural richness, and it is it that allows us to acknowledge the existence of different ways of doing it right, and that invites us to dialogue and exchange ideas, which is necessary for innovation, both in the job matter and also in coming up with creative solutions to ever so complex societal problems. And that is why our OCs call for cooperation and exchange of ideas, both on the European level of member states to the regional, civic, and ordinary level of students, teachers, and parents, notably as to the clauses regarding mental health. However, we came to the conclusion that certain problems in education could not wait, and we have considered asking member states, for example, to increase their share of GDP devoted to education. We have considered asking them to reassess public-private school policies, but we realized that we do not have the power to do so. And we realized that each state is different, and what functioned in one would not necessarily be effective in another. So instead, we have decided to focus on what we could do, which was to encourage Europe to incorporate borderless citizen programs into all other territories, from the core to the periphery, as well as equipping member states with the necessary tools to help their students. Yes,
okay, that's fine. That's okay. I have to cut you off. I'm sorry you went a bit over time, but again, thank you. With that said, the first point of the second round of open debate shall go to Reggie. Reggie, you're recognized.
Thank you for recognizing me. So I would like to ask about resolution number 4. So do you think that youngs are confident to talk about their mental health in their classes? From my experience, my classmates feel judged and insecure, and mental health classes would trigger most of them. Don't you want to rather support and put more therapists in schools? Thank you.
Thank you. Can one of the members of the board take over because my laptop crashed and I don't know.
Yes, no worries. We are here. We will proceed with a point from Econ 2 next. Econ 2, you are recognized. Econ 2, where did you go?
Sorry. Yes, thank you for recognition. And I was wondering as to why you have not recognized the success of education systems in Sweden, Finland, and Estonia, which are some of the best in the world, and why are you not inviting member states to follow their example? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we will take a point from ITRE. ITRE, you are recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. I have a question about the latter part of Vitals number 4, where it says that you wish to offer regular mental health checkups in schools Europe-wide. However, I'm afraid that in many member states, such as here in Sweden, where I live, we do not have enough school psychologists to provide these types of checkups for the students who need it the most, and even less so for all students, you know, on a regular basis. So how do you plan on tackling this issue?
Thank you very much. The last round of the last point for this round will go to NV2. You're recognized.
Thank you for your recognition. I have a question regarding the policy proposal number 2. In this one, you mention implementing innovative education programs, and I believe that not every country can provide it due to the lack of funding. This funding might be for material or even technologies and etc. And nevertheless, countries actually have other sort of issues that need to be tackled at the first place. So I'm very much curious about the answer that you will provide. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing as there are no direct responses right now, we will return to Colt. I've noted down that there were points questioning the lack of mentioning for Northern successful or currently deemed successful education systems, as well as issues with the amount of psychologists, psychiatrists available to do regular mental health checkups. Colt, you have a minute and 30 seconds to respond to the points of this open debate.
Thank you for the valuable comments. I would first like to refer back to the comments made on the final part of Clause 4 regarding the availability of psychologists in school. The CULT Committee respects that each member state may not have the ability to provide psychologists at school. However, the committee in OC4 mentions that we invite schools to offer psychologists, not force. My committee has written our resolution with the utter and most respect for each nation's national sovereignty. And I would therefore like to highlight that OC4 just provides a recommendation, as an easy access to a psychologist is truly beneficial for one's mental health. Regarding the same point, we also think that talking about mental health doesn't have to mean that you need to bring up your own personal experiences, but creating general discourse and discussion may help students better realize that they need psychological help or just help in general, which is why we think that it's essential to invite countries to set up such mental health classes where there's a bigger discourse regarding mental health happening. And as for the comments being made on our resolution not highlighting the beneficial effects from other nations, we have used these nations such as Finland as constant reminders and examples when working on our resolution, and find that these were essential in our OC clauses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will move on to the next round of open debate, starting with a point from Economic and Monetary Affairs 1. You're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. I had an issue regarding policy proposal number 7 about the organization of trainings for teachers in order for them to implement critical thinkings in their subject, which I think is a great idea, but this policy seems incomplete to me because I think you cannot leave it at just the state of organizing these trainings. You need to make sure that the people who have received these trainings pass it on to their students efficiently, and that these trainings are not taken just because some EU institution requires them to be made, and then we don't have any continuation of the outputs afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Econ 1, we will move on with a point from your brethren from Econ 3. You're recognized.
Okay, thank you for the recognition. I have a question regarding OC number 5. Can I ask what differs students from other groups that are affected by EU legislation and policies for them to have a privilege to discuss it directly with the EU Commission? Thank you.
Thank you very much for this point. Next up, it will be the Committee on Industry, Research and Energy. ITRE, you're recognized.
Thank you for recognition. I would like to address OC number 9 and ask you to elaborate more about what digitalization of education is. And isn't this something already implemented in Digital Education Action Plan, which supports digital transformation plans at all levels of education and training, as well as proposes recommendations improving the provision of digital skills in education and training? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see that we have a direct response from the Committee on Fisheries. Pesh, is this directly in relation to the inclusion of potential measures already in the education plan? If so, you're recognized.
Thank you for recognizing me. The currently implemented digital education systems allegedly have harmful mental impacts. And even if that's not true, teachers who have done this have said it undermines the education process and causes students to fall behind on the curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also see a direct response from Sede. If you're sure that this is directly connected, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you. I would like to also build on what the past delegate said. That is why I exactly believe that OC number 9 is a bit contradictory, because on the one hand, you recognize the effects of digital education on students' mental health, and then you promote even more digitalization. So I think that's a little bit of a contradiction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing, just double checking, there's no direct responses. We will take one final point from the committee. Reggie, you're recognized. Reggie, are you there?
Okay, thank you for the question. Okay, sorry. So first of all, I would like to congratulate CULT committee on dealing with such an important topic. However, I have worries also regarding policy proposal number 9. As we could have seen during pandemic, digitalization didn't go well. A part of the children can't afford laptops or computers, as it was also stated in one of direct responses in the beginning. So how do you want to tackle this problem in detail? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This round focused a lot on policy proposal number 9 that promotes the digitalization of education in all member states by funding necessary technology and courses. I count a whole 2 points as well as 2 direct responses here according to on this particular proposal. However, there's also questions on the trainings for teachers, as well as priority given to certain groups and the fellow members not fully understanding why. Would you be ready to respond? If so, CULT, you're recognized.
All right, so I want to address all these points that have been brought up, which were very nice points and will definitely be helping to make our plans better. But let's start with the first point. by Econ 1 in that OC7 is that it is incomplete and it won't help follow up with people going actually to work and being employed. And the thing is that critical thinking in the 21st century has become such an important part. They focus a lot on independent critical thought in employment around these years in this modern society we live in. So having just the vocational centers focus on such things that help develop skills for self-actualized citizens is such an important part of making people more ready for work and even more ready for the ever evolving landscape that the society presents itself in. Econ 3's point number 2 here is about OC5, and the thing is that students that are affected by these EU policies, it's all of them. Everyone who's under the EU will probably be helped by them in some way or another. But what we are targeting is the bottom line, the 10% who only had this lower secondary education at most, the 10% that couldn't be interested in school,
Please
the 10%
conclude.
that were felt put down by this system. And due to time constraints, let's go to the big point, OC9, which was about the digitalization of education in all member states. So what you focused on was mental health. But technology and mental health is not a direct correlation. It's how it's used. It's Facebook can be a detriment to mental health, but programs designed to teach people about how to use technology in this incredibly technologized world
Thank you
is
very much. I'll have to
very
cut you off right there. This is also the point where I will check if Lazarus is back, and then the debate gets thrown over to him again.
I am back and alive. Thank
Perfect.
you. Thank you, Toby, for taking over while me dealing with my technical issues. So yeah, now we shall open the fourth round of debate, which will tackle both the aims and the policy proposals of COLT's resolution. And the first point for the fourth round of debate will go to NV2. NV2, you're recognized.
Hi, my point concerns policy number 5. I was just wondering, I think it's a really good idea, but I think it needs further elaboration, and I'd like to know how you intend to make sure that the voices of all students are heard and not just those in maybe higher economic brackets. Thank you.
Thank you, NV2, for asking more elaboration on policy proposal number 5 in terms of how all students' voices will be heard. Next point will go to NV1, the sister committee. Oh, wait, no, never mind. We have a direct response from where? Liebe, you're recognized. Sorry about that. And
no problem. Thank you very much. Regarding, again, OC number 5 and hearing of the students' voices, I think it's important to realize that even if the students take part in these sorts of parliamentary simulation events or a decision-making process, the outcomes usually don't really get to those stages, don't really get to those official parliaments. So I think it's not only about the voices from, for example, higher structures of society that would get heard, but society in general. How do voices from students in general get to those higher structures of government? Thank you.
Thank you, Liebe, for the point on how you can not just empower the voices of students, but also ensure that there are some practicality within the context of society. Is that correct? Yeah. And so, as promised, we're going to go back to NV1. NV1, you're recognized. NV1. NV1, you can share your point. No, okay, so it seems that NV1 does not have its point, so we can move on to Pesh. Pesh, go for it.
Thank you for recognizing me. I have a point about policy proposal number 6, where you want to secure equal opportunities for all students among member states. But how will you do that with member states that have, in their religion, in their culture, or in their country, different needs for education and different equality visions? Thank you.
Thank you, Pesh. The next point will go to Reggie. Reggie, you're recognized.
Thank you for recognizing me. So I would like to ask you about resolution number 2. So you are stating that you would like to implement innovative education programs. So what exactly should be innovating and how it would benefit students to prepare for their future jobs and help them to achieve their career dreams? Thank you.
Thank you, Reggie, for pointing out how can we help students achieve their dreams and aspirations. And yes, now we're gonna go to NV1. NV1 recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. So I actually need a clarification on your privacy proposal number 7, on whom you are going to deliver those development trainings, whether it is going to be high school or the universities, because since you have mentioned in your because clauses that 10.2% of Europeans have just a lower secondary education, in my opinion, the main problem here is the university and the high pricing of them. Thank you.
Thank you, NV1, for requiring.
For fuck's sake, this is just.
Can whoever just swear mute themselves? Thank you. And I shall move on. Make sure you mute yourselves. Unless I recognize you or the board recognizes you. Got that? Cool. Okay, so the final point for this round will go to ITRE, and then we're gonna go back to the proposing committee.
Thank you very much for your recognition. I would just like to address probably your aim the most, because although I like the idea of including the creativity more, I can't help but see a bit of a bias towards more extroverted students. And a bit of a pressure to more introverted individuals. Thank you very much for your recognition.
Thank you. Anyways, now let's go back to the proposing committee to respond to the fourth round of debate. If you're ready, Colt. Oh no, wait. If you're ready, Colt, you're recognized.
Okay, so thank you all for your interesting question and your interesting points. How do we make sure that all students are heard? Our idea is to set groups in each school which will be able to include the problems of every school, so it will include as many students as possible. How do we ensure that the students' voices are heard? Well, we cannot ensure that, but we have to start somewhere, right? And also there's an important role that newspaper and media can do by spreading students' voices. But if students don't express their voices, they cannot spread anything. Then about the next point, who was about PEC committee. We recognize all differences and sovereignty, but we are just talking about implementing basic courses that are needed in all EU states. And then about the point, the last point, the next point. It was meant for teachers, so both in high school and in university. And last point about.
I'm sorry, I had to cut you off. You went a bit over time. I'm sorry, but you did great. Thank you. With that said, it's time for the classic 5-minute break where COLT will deliberate in their committee rooms about if they're going to add any amendments to their resolution. So can the Orca team share their lovely music?
Coming.
Okay, it's coming. Okay. So yes, amazing. Thank you. So it seems that Colt has no amendments. They will not make any amendments for the resolution. So we can move on to the summation speech. Colt, I see you have raised your hand. So yes, you're recognized. You have 2 minutes. No, yes, 3 minutes. Yeah. You can start.
All right, thank you. Dear Mr. Vice President, honorable members of the board, distinguished guests, and fellow delegates. Benjamin Franklin once said that an investment in knowledge pays the best interest, a statement which I believe many of us can agree upon. But although we all understand the importance of education, 10.2% of all European students currently drop out of their education due to their ideas being ignored and creativity diminished. That is 10.2% of all European students who experience that the current education systems do not positively challenge their abilities. 10.2% of all European students who feel that they, in their education, do not get accepted for such a simple thing as being who they truly are. When the Cult Committee and I therefore began working on our resolution, we knew that our efforts were not only essential in inspiring and improving existing European education systems, but also essential for shaping and improving the European education of tomorrow. For as digitalization and globalization change our current societies, we as members, citizens, or cooperators of the EU must adapt to these changes, which our resolution most definitely prompts. But something both I and my fellow cult delegates finds tramps the importance of a more integrated and digitalized world is the fact that various education systems all across Europe suppress the intrinsic freedom of independent thought, critical thinking, and most importantly, true and honest self-expression. Therefore, a vote for the Cult Committee's resolution is not just a vote for improving the current European education systems, but a vote for the improvement of tomorrow's innovations and dreams. European education must ensure that all students have the ability to freely develop, express, and find their abilities while becoming self-actualized citizens responsible for shaping our future. I therefore urge you, my fellow delegates, to vote for the Cult Committee's resolution. For as Benjamin Franklin has said, an investment in knowledge truly pays the best interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Colt, for this very inspirational summation speech. It's a good way to end the first debate of the day. Now it's time to share the polls and start voting for the aim of the resolution. So who will share it? Is that you, Rebecca, or is it I? Silence. Okay, cool. It'll take some time to load, so patience. Awesome. The poll is open, so cast your votes, people. So we're currently at 43 completions. (62 completions. So we have a 10-second countdown till the polls close. Yes, I mean, not that quick, Ilya, slower. 68. We're missing 2 votes, but I guess by now the poll has closed, so I can view the results. Okay, they're still open, so I'm waiting. Okay, it backed. The anticipation is real. Okay, here you go. Okie dokes. So the image is loading. That will take some time. Okay, here we go. So with 2 abstentions, 10 votes against, and 56 votes in favor, the aim of the motion of resolution by Colt has passed. And now, congratulations on that. And now we shall move on to the policy proposals. So you know the drill, cast your votes. You have less than a minute. Okay, so we have so far 15 completions, 39 completions, 42, 56 completions. Let's do a countdown, a 10-second countdown. So 10, 9. Okay, I'll stop. Because yeah. I'm just gonna open the votes. Wait. I've just pressed the wrong button. I'm sorry. I know. It takes too long. It's okay. You're doing great. The results of this poll will be available after it closes. Cool. Okay, the poll has closed. So with that said, with 3 abstentions, 25 votes against, and 40 votes in favor. Again, it's with great pleasure to announce that the policy proposals of COLT have also passed. Give them a round of applause, people. Before we go to the next debate, we can have a 4-minute break, toilet break and water break. So be back at 11:05 sharp. Yes, is that, yep. And I shall pass on the mic, the virtual mic, to whoever chairs the next committee.
Yes, we will reconvene at 11:05 Central European Time. I'll see you then. I see the auditorium is still somewhat empty. However, I hope people will return soon. I ask all chairs to lower their hands, and only the next committee, which is ITRE, to raise their hands once their whole committee is there. ITRE, are you there in full? Then please raise your hand. Great. Libe, do you have a point to make because your hand is up? Great. Then I would like to start the next debate with the motion for a resolution by the Committee on Industry, Research and Energy, iRobot. With the rising importance of machines and artificial intelligence, moving society into a new technocratic age, what should be the ethical and legal framework for the use and development of AI? And I believe the media team has yet another great presentation prepared for us that I hope the organizers can show. Also, someone's not muted.
There is a small technical issue with the video. We'll be back in a sec.
That is not an issue at all. I encourage all delegates to look at the resolution that they should have open on their screens, and already think about what they want to ask and inquire about while we are waiting for the video to buffer. At least it is very fitting that for the importance of machines and AI topic, we would have some technical issues. Where else would that happen? We'll give it another 30 seconds. Oh, Daniela is back. Yes, that looks very good.
Digital assistants, self-driving vehicles, smart home devices, and weather predictions. That's only a tip of an iceberg when it comes to AI. Finally, it's here, iRobot, an AI that goes far beyond mere convenience. Your doctor, therapist, personal trainer, it can solve your personal problems and even global challenges. But who is responsible when things start to go wrong?
The aim of our resolution is to find kind of a standard ethical and legal framework for the use and development of artificial intelligence. Using artificial intelligence, there's obviously a lot of issues that surround it, whether it's accountability or the case of discrimination that we've seen in the past with artificial intelligence. So our aim was to find kind of a common ground for a legal and ethical framework that firsthand protected the human rights of the European citizens and ensure that we weren't hindering its development. Obviously, a lot of discussion around these topics were needed. Concepts like fairness, transparency, and overall regulations of AI, those are extremely complex problems.
Our work very much depended on research as we went along and learning new things based on what other people had researched. So it was a lot of teamwork in learning about the topic. The most difficult part is definitely the research. We took research breaks and stuff.
I would agree, difficulty of research. I also came into this topic knowing absolutely nothing, and knowing what I know now, I would definitely look and unpack specific topics a bit more.
When it came to the resolution, one of the most debated topics was accountability, and the end result is what we kind of agreed was that businesses need to have a lot of transparency with their work with artificial intelligence. So if there is something that goes wrong and it goes to a court of law, then the amount of transparency would ensure that a level of accountability can be held for whatever issues did go wrong.
Also, the topic of biometric mass surveillance was discussed for a decent period of time. I think that we came up with a very efficient resolution.
Thank you very much once again towards the media team for these lovely videos. Before we go to the proposing committee for their proposition speech, I would like to remind everyone here of some microphone etiquette. It is possible to mute you, but it is very tricky to do so immediately. So we have to figure out who you are when you're not muted. So please keep that in mind to unmute and mute before and after your points. Also, we'll be trialing out a tiny new thing. I'll be trying to tap my microphone like this during your points that are timed. So if you hear a tap, you might want to speed up and try to conclude a tiny bit faster. I'll be chiming in with the usual conclude at the last 10 seconds. With that said, and without further ado, we'll move on to the proposing committee for their defense speech. Itre, you're recognized.
Vice President, honorable members of the board, distinguished guests, and fellow delegates. It is my great honor to deliver a proposition speech on behalf of ITRI committee. When you hear artificial intelligence, the first thing that probably pops into your mind are humanoid robots or a dystopian vision of machines taking over the world. Such image is far from reality. Nonetheless, the message it conveys is not unfounded. For hundreds of years, people have been in awe of new technologies, especially the ones which can present intelligent behavior. Nevertheless, we cannot limit innovation because this is the force driving our progress and solving all the problems that occur on the way. This is why our main goal while working on this resolution was to find balance between safeguarding human rights and allowing for the technological progress. As we now stand on the threshold of a new technocentric era, we need to have a legal and ethical framework for use and development of AI. You may ask why. Well, allow me to start with the bright side. If we use AI in a responsible manner, it can truly transform our lives for the better. According to studies, AI can boost global economy by 20% in the next 10 years, as well as solve many pressing issues regarding health, education, and energy. It is one-of-a-kind opportunity for our society to actually turn the corner and become sustainable. That sounds great, right? Unfortunately, AI also has its dark sides. By 2030, it could displace up to 60% of workers in Europe, which poses a huge threat to economic stability and well-being of citizens. What's more, there are many documented cases in which AI system was biased or personal data were leaked. While we expect computer systems to be objective, AI is just as discriminative as we humans are. Bias can occur on all stages of machine learning, and sometimes the system may not be transparent enough to prove that actual harm was done. Even if it is, there still remains a question of who should be held accountable. We believe that European Union's proposal for AI legal framework is insufficient cannot tackle this problem. We need a new set of regulations that will address all the threats posed by AI and which will be adaptive to new technologies which may appear in the future. I would highly encourage you to vote in favor of our resolution, because as Steve Jobs once said, it's not a faith in technology, it's faith in people. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very well-timed speech. We will move on to opposition speeches, where we will have 2 of 2 minutes each. The first one will go to the Committee on Fisheries. Pesh, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you for your recognition. Dear President, dear members of the board, fellow delegates, and honorable guests. AI is present in our daily life everywhere and has only been for the last 30 years, even though the evolution has been increasing exponentially during the last decade. This technological progress is a direct result of the new issues that we have to face and is strongly linked to the evolution of societies and their always increasing access to information and devices. It is even more relatable in the context of the COVID-19 crisis, with an extremely dense and fast wave of digitalization and innovation in this domain, following the demands and needs for digital workplaces and platforms during the confining. We have seen during the last few months how adaptable the societies are thanks to technologies when facing crisis. AI is indeed a means to make life easier in a large range of domains. However, there are also important issues. Security and privacy are very often mentioned, but I believe the psychological, social, and physical impacts must not be forgotten. Funding innovation is important indeed, but funding researches on how AI is transforming our ways of life, our economy, in order to provide strong and precise regulations is one of the problems we have to tackle right now. It is about the next generations and how they will grow and live with such technologies, and about our generation to be able to adapt and not let AI overtake us. We have to act now to educate youth as well as elders, and to create strong interdisciplinary bonds between companies and researchers in order to anticipate and tackle the future problems with the most general view on the impacts for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I see none of you want to give me the pleasure of saying conclude. We will take the second opposition speech from the Committee on Economic and Monetary Affairs, number 1. You are recognized and have 2 minutes.
Dear delegates, honorable members of the board, distinguished guests, and organizers. Delegates, this may seem out of place, but hang with me. I really like putting, and I like this resolution. Quite frankly, I really like this resolution, but I don't like raisins in the pudding. And there are a few raisins, so to say, in this resolution. The first raisin is policy proposal number 3. I think we can all agree that there are cameras needed in some places for security, especially airports, for example. But biometrics and mostly facial recognition, it's really easy to do, and you don't need active cameras all over the place with some sort of extra hardware special technology. No, all you need to do is save the videos you can take, even with a mobile phone, and run it through some thousands of services online. I could take a video right now of you all. Of course, I'm not going to do it, but you just need a high-res video and send it through AI. And then you get output. And that output, the output is your faces and Google services, for example. Yeah, I lost myself. It doesn't matter. A lot was mentioned in the first part, and yeah, I don't have anything left to say.
Conclude. Well, that's gonna be a tough muffin full of raisins to crack for the Committee on Industry, Research and Energy for sure. I am hoping that they are ready to respond now. I also can tell them once more that there were some issues raised on education or educating the public and forming bonds in society. I see, is your hand up, Itre? Then you have a minute and a half to respond to these points. You're recognized.
Yes, thank you for the recognition. Firstly, I would like to thank you for the amazing speeches. I think they have been full of very constructive criticism, which we will definitely take into account in the future. So starting off, in the second speech, I believe that you were speaking mostly about the proposals of a topic, which is not what we are addressing right now, and so I will not be coming up with any comebacks or criticism of that speech. For the first speech, you spoke a lot about the side effects of technology on our psychology. And this is something which we will address in the accountability part, and which we have stated to address in it as well in our aim. So I think that it's quite clear too. Yes, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We shall move on to the first round of open debates, focusing on the aim as well as the because clauses that give context. And our first point will come from the committee. Reggie, you're recognized.
Hello. With the usage of AI, there may be caused some bugs, glitches, and simple inconsistencies that might be detrimental to the people's livelihood. So I've been wondering why tackling that problem is not written in your aims.
Thank you very much. We will then move on to a point from Econ 2. You're recognized.
Thank you for recognizing me. It's not recognized there that the difference between levels of economic development between countries, and there are already developed countries and still developing, can cause difficulties for some of them to implement their technologies. And since that uncontrolled boost of technologies in one country while others lagging behind even a bit will deepen the already existing inequality between countries. And it's not only the economic side of the same, it's also a moral side, as people will have to struggle. So why do you think adding to your aim statement, fostering the equality of this opportunity is not important? Thank you.
Thank you very much for this point on inequality. I saw there was a direct response, but I think it has been withdrawn again, which means we move on to Econ 3. You're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. So I would like to congratulate ITRE for their efforts put, but there are concerns about the aim and direction you've taken. Although you do address safeguarding fundamental human rights, I consider it vital to include in your aims equality in the workforce, as well as ensure the unbiased and ethical algorithms of artificial intelligence when it comes to the workforce. This is because both the 2014 Turing experiment and the 2016 Gorilla Google scandal are evidence proving the unethical bias and lack of transparency of the use of artificial intelligence, which undoubtedly must be tackled.
Thank you very much. I see someone did their research on this topic very thoroughly. And I have next a point from the Committee on Culture and Education Affairs. You're recognized.
Yes. So what you have addressed in your because clause is that AI and automation could displace 45 to 60% of workers in Europe by 2030, your fourth because clause. Yet you have written this as if it was a fundamentally bad thing, but getting low amounts of low educated workers can lead to more people actually going up of the ranks and getting more highly skilled jobs. Plus, if you want to avoid this, you are in the process of stifling innovation, which goes directly against your aim, which is about promoting innovation. So you can either let the AI work efficiently and innovate and displace jobs, or you can stifle the AI and then not displace jobs. But you want to achieve both at the same time. That was my point.
Thank you very much. And before returning to the proposing committee, I would like to take one final point from the committee NV1.
Thank you for the recognition. Bearing in mind the fact that people learn throughout their life, as well as AI, why have you stated that 45 to 60% of workers being displayed in AI as a problem, but as an opportunity for enriching, adapting, acquiring new skills, and transitioning to a more interesting and open for innovations field? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with this, we will give the chance to the proposing committee to respond to questions on the livelihood of people, on the deepening or potential deepening of inequality between European countries, on the scandals surrounding biased algorithms, as well as the skill level of workers. ITRE, you're recognized.
Thank you so much for recognition, and thank you to the committees for interest in our resolution. Yeah, I would like to address some of the points. So the first one was whether AI can cause lags and how it can influence people. So I think it's not really a topic of our resolution because it is due to computer speed and other aspects, whether there are lags or other glitches. We address ethical and legal framework, and also AI is actually usually used to find and detect those bugs and glitches. So instead of causing them, it usually solves them. The next point was that we do not recognize the different levels of development in the different countries in EU. We think that funding that we address in our because clauses will solve that problem. Funding will be equal and will take into account current state of development of AI in every country. The next point is the fact that equality in workforce is missing. Those are included in the following by and because clauses, so you can find them there. Next, unbiased algorithms in workforce. Again, we address it in our opening clauses, in our because clauses, and this is a very obviously complex topic. And yeah, we come to a conclusion that because of these algorithms, we need to have a precise oversight of these algorithms before the AI is actually ready to be applied in the market.
Thank you very much. I'll have to cut you off there. We shall move on to the next round of open debate, which will start with a point from the Committee on Security and Defense. Sede, you're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. In your IC4, where you talk about AI and automation could displace 45 to 60% of workers, You also talk in your aims about the fundamental human rights, yet in your OC proposal, I can't find anything how you would fix that problem. Work is one of the fundamental human rights, so you basically contradict yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I see that I have to point of order myself for a moment. I'll note down what you said, Sede. And since no one complained, I guess ITRE does not feel like introducing their policy proposals. ITRE, I would like to apologize to you and also give you a 2-minute time frame to introduce the policy proposal section. You're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. Dear Ms. President, honorable members of the board, distinguished guests and fellow delegates. I believe we all have some associations with artificial intelligence, and the majority of them is probably very sci-fi. Along with these expectations, there are certainly fears arising. AI taking over the workplace or even the whole world, for example. Although we as a committee can ensure that this won't happen within the next few years, there are still potential threats. In order to limit these issues, while ensuring that the huge economic and societal benefits are achieved, we have derived a resolution that is built on 4 pillars: promoting research, supporting the key proposals by a new proposal by the European Commission on AI regulations, banning the use of AI for mass surveillance and predictive policing, and increasing transparency and understanding of AI. Let me very briefly comment on each of them. First of all, European stakeholders have to further work together, which is why we suggest to increase fundings for such initiatives to develop AI effectively. About 1.5 weeks ago, the European Commission published a new proposal for harmonized rules on AI that includes, for example, an overseen and more differentiated risk-based approach, new regulations on human oversight, or a penalty system. These and other measures, as stated in our resolution, are crucial. To further ensure that the regulations are effective, we will request experts to suggest specific measures regarding accountability and changes to the framework. This is of utmost importance as the development of AI is constantly accelerating. Just to very briefly go on the last 2 points, although mass surveillance and predictive policies might have some benefits, the human rights violation that come along overweigh by far, and transparency and understanding of AI is, as pointed out by some fellow delegates already in the first round, is very crucial in order to have the best and most effective implementation of AI.
Please conclude.
This resolution tackled the threats of AI through a holistic approach and tackles loopholes that still exist in the new framework proposal of the EU. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, returning to the open debate, I would like to give the floor to NV2.
Thank you for your recognition. Basically, my question is the following regarding the material used in the development of artificial intelligence algorithms consume a lot of electricity, and in the past few years, as AI usage has grown, its energy consumption and carbon emissions have become an environmental concern. So I think the policy proposals, like the importance of mentioning sustainability and providing effective solutions, plus if you aim to safeguard human lives, I'm sure that each one of us on this planet has the right to live in a safe and clean environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Envy, for this point. We shall move on to Economic and Monetary Affairs number 1 next.
Thank you very much for your recognition, and thank you, ITRE, for this wonderful resolution. However, I have one major issue with it. As one of my fellow delegates said previously, you mentioned in your because clause that 45 to 60% of workers will be displaced by the implementation of AI technology. However, in your policy proposals, you don't adequately address this issue. How would you respond to this issue while keeping in mind the different skill level and education level of workers working in this sector? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And pending any direct responses, I will take the last point for this round from the Committee on Fisheries. Pesh, you're recognized.
Your sound
Oh,
isn't
I
working
see.
on.
Sorry, can I stop you, Pesh? I see we have a very last minute direct response from regional development. I will come back to you, Pesh, after their direct response. Reggie?
Just on the point of workers and the lack of support in the policies, Section 9 does clearly state that they will help educate. However, with 60% of Europe do become unemployed, that's about 300 million people. It is 300 million people becoming unemployed in over the space of 10 years is almost an impossible amount to adequately re-educate to the level to be go back into the workplace, especially if they are older. So there is no proper system in order to support people who are unemployed. No one is able to completely educate people before they become unemployed, as this is, as you said, promoting a rapid innovation. Therefore, I do not see how you're able to support unemployed people or how to adequately educate them before they become unemployed to be re-employed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I see that we're picking up heat as there is a direct response from NV1. You're recognized.
Thank you for recognition. I just would like to respond to the last delegate in support of HRA. He mentioned that there is no way that they're going to support the unemployed. However, what HRA actually kind of failed to mention that AI is creating jobs, and the number of jobs that is being created by AI is actually really high. And I was kind of disappointed that HRA did not mention that. However, it's a really valid point that it's being created jobs. These jobs require some high skills. And I think their sub-point number 8, it's the one about education, it addressed this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, however, I would like to come back. Oh, there's another direct response from Sede. Sede, are you sure that this is directly related? If so, then you're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. I would like to respond to the past delegates point. I understand your point of view. However, so many people that are going to be left unemployed in the next few years are a bit too many in order to educate properly in the field of AI. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Contrary to what I said, I would like to hand it back to the proposing committee next so that they have a chance to respond to all of the points raised, which are very much about the skills needed and the workforce. And this would also be the time to remind all delegates present and discussing that this resolution focuses on AI and its implementation mainly, and not so much about the other parts, but maybe ITRE will also tell you about this. Their response starts now. ITRE, you are recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. Sorry, my voice is a little off today. So I just wanted to talk about a couple of the points that the other committees raised and very justified raised. I'll start off with a smaller one, which is about how the development of AI consumes a lot of electricity. It's incredibly valid, and we support building sustainable infrastructure, which will allow for AI, but not have any negative impact on the environment. AI creates algorithms which will allow for sustainable transitions to alternative energy sources in all sectors of the industry. I think a lot of what the committees are forgetting is that our resolution is, like Tobias said, to support the ethical and legal framework of AI implementation. Everything else comes afterwards, and we have addressed it, and the transition of the workforce is incredibly important. But I think a lot of you were latching onto the study about the 60% of the workforce being misplaced. The study wasn't about people being unemployed, but replaced. The study was about people being put into new jobs. It wasn't that people are going to become unemployed. It's that people are going to be replaced with new and exciting jobs that will arise with the implementation of AI. We protect the human right by funding new jobs and we protect the human right of working for funding new jobs and education. If you want to bring your gaze down to OC9, we expand the training. We understand that re-educating 3 million.
Please conclude.
Sorry. So yeah, just in conclusion, we do offer a lot of yeah. Look, I'm just going to be repeating what I said.
Well, let's not do that then, and move on at long last to the Committee on Fisheries. Pesh, you're recognized. Pesh, are you there? If so, you are muted.
No,
Hello.
But I can take it over if you don't mind. So probably yeah. So my point is it possible to dynamically develop AI specialized in those directions which may be vital for humanity, vaccine, for example, and set strict framework and restrictions for other AI's manifestations, such as facial recognition system without any dispute? So how do you think it is possible to delimitate and control AI's progress in different areas? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pesh. We will move on to a point from Libe. You're recognized.
Thank you for recognizing me. I would like to draw your attention to Clause 1. I think that they're unnecessarily drawing funding towards an existing network when potentially that funding could be invested in more of a global network. Currently, AI is a form of globalization, and I think it would be a good idea to take advantage of international innovation in such global sector, instead of restricting ourselves to this network, which currently only invests in European AI innovation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next point will come from Econ 2. You're recognized.
My question is just, you have mentioned predictive policing and that it's...
May I ask you to move closer to the microphone?
Yes, sorry. You mentioned predictive policing and that it interferes with state authority, but I do not really see the connection. Could you elaborate on that?
Thank you very much. And pending any direct responses, yet again, the last point for this round of open debate will come from Econ 3.
Thank you for the recognition. I have a question regarding OC number 5. Are you willing to take the risk the fact that common data centers are a big security risk for numerous member states and an easy target to attack by China or the Russian Federation? Now, I know you may suggest that this is not really a point regarding your resolution. However, if there's data that you're so open about collecting, you have to also make sure that the citizens' information doesn't fall into other governments' hands. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To sum up, I'm very happy that this round very much focused on the points from this resolution. For example, about the centers that are proposed being an easy target for attack, questions on how policing would work exactly and how that interferes, how or why you chose to be more EU-centric instead of a global approach, and how you would suggest handling different types of AI. Also, as a small reminder, should you have enough time, you could still also mention the point from the first round or the previous round on the missing or the not so large focus on sustainability that Econ 1 had raised at that point. So with that said, are you ready, Itre? You're recognized.
Yes, thank you for the recognition. Addressing the previous point for sustainability. So we are supporting that and we want sustainable infrastructure. Not to lose too much time, I will be focusing much more on this round of debate. So in general, we are focusing much more on the EU as we are in general the European Youth Parliament. And so our aim and focus is the European Parliament and the European Union. Of course, that it is crucial that the data won't be included for like personal data of the citizens, and we will make sure that none of the personal data will be leaked to the governments or for being used for further purposes that are not ethical. So this is what we're trying to aim, even though the GDPR tackles this much more. And at the same time, we support what the GDPR is said already, and we want to implement that for the future too. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the last round of open debate where everything goes. Anything or everything from the aim to the context to the policy proposals is open to be questioned, and we will take our first point from the Committee on Culture and Education Affairs. Cult, you're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. I would like to talk about your third OC that says to ban the use of biometric mass surveillance in public spaces. But in fact, by doing some research, we can see that using biometrics has proven to be efficient and useful in terms of cost, consuming time, and also because everyone has a unique set of biometrics. So what if, instead of banning them completely, we suggest regulating them and implementing policies that would not let any third parties access this data, as it is also one of your main aims? Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very constructive point that's already offering a suggestion as well. Next up, we take a point from Reggie. You're recognized.
Sorry. Okay, thank you for the floor. First of all, I wanted to compliment the ITRE committee for the well-written resolution. However, even though I understand that your topic is very broad and quite difficult to address, I would have included a discussion on the use of AI in warfare, as it is a major controversy that absolutely needs a well-organized legal framework. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, it will be Econ 1. You're recognized.
Thank you. I would like to raise awareness about a certain issue about policy proposal number 2. There are certain domains, especially the legal one and politics can be included in this as well, where AI has been proven to actually make better decisions and prospective policing rather than humans. So as long as the AI is owned and verified by the sovereign countries' political actors, why would that be a problem? Why shouldn't we let AIs make decisions if they are more capable than us in issues that shouldn't include a personal opinion or a personal sentiment of certain individuals? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have a direct response from Econ 2. You're recognized.
Yes, thank you. On my direct response on why we should still implement or at least still have some humans in this system. It is clear to everyone at a certain point in our lifetime that AI and machines will surpass us, and the only question is now when, and if we should give machines power, if they will turn against us. So having some fail safes in the system, and also, for instance, also with military launch codes and nuclear codes, is always better. Although humans are very prone to mistakes, that is assured, we still have to have some checks and balances in this system. Otherwise, we might have Skynet, and I hate doing movie references, but this is the only and the best example that we've got for it.
Thank you very much. I see that Cult also has a direct response. Cult, you are recognized.
Thank you,
just to echo what my fellow delegate in Econ 2 said, it is completely necessary that we implement a humanitarian aspect when it comes to things like predictive policing, because it is evident that there's so much of a history of discriminatory decisions when it comes to AI and predictive policing. And it's something that we need to do. As much as AI is powerful and helpful, it cannot take all decisions for us, especially in regards to human life. How are we supposed to expect computers to have complete and utter decisions when it comes to human life? So I think that's something we need to rethink. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see the next direct response from Econ 1. You're recognized.
Thank you. I would like to thank my fellow delegates for the input on this matter. But what I was talking about was the fixed laws and fixed implementation of how a state works, not including human lives. I wouldn't allow, for example, in my opinion, if I was a legislator, I wouldn't allow an AI to control military forces or to make choices regarding people's lives. But everything else that is related to legal system and how the economy works and how we can decide what is better to what areas are the better ones to invest into are better in the hands of an AI that is, again, I want to underline, verified and owned by the sovereign state. So the AI doesn't take over what the sovereign states, legislators and politicians are doing. It's just controlled by them in order to ensure a better development and a much more technological and humanitarian advance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to double check because I have been informed that there is a direct response from Libe. Do you still have this direct response?
Yeah.
Okay, in that case, then the direct response is yours.
I would like to continue with this debate over AI and policing. And I would like to say that we have a massive opportunity when we have policing controlled by artificial intelligence. I understand that often kind of discrimination can become like ingrained in artificial intelligence systems, but it also gives us an opportunity to totally eradicate discrimination by having this kind of solid system in place that we're able to analyze, unlike we'd be able to analyze any human making decisions. We can make sure that we can eradicate discrimination for sure. And I feel like this is an even more sustainable solution that would last forever and one that we can constantly improve on. Unlike people in power who are unpredictable and whose job roles will constantly be changing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that the committee will take plenty of time to respond to this whole subset of issues. I'm currently taking a look at our WISE sheet that's running in the background. And while it is somewhat non-ordinary, we will have another point, but not a direct response, next from Libe, which is due to the overall points that they have made throughout the days. Libe, you're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. Firstly, I want to thank the ITRE committee for producing a very thorough resolution. However, I'm concerned about the contradictory nature of your aim. When, as you mention in your because clauses, AI and automation could displace 45 to 60% of workers in Europe by 2030, and AI development and implementation could entail risks to fundamental human rights. How can you aim to address all the ever-evolving risks of AI at the same time?
May I ask you to mute your phone when you're speaking, as it is very distracting to follow your point? I think we have lost Liebe. At least I don't hear anything, which is quite the bummer. I hope that is a good learning point for everyone here to keep in check what devices might or might not ring during General Assembly. I would like to now conclude by offering the proposing committee a final chance to respond to any questions raised. This round of debate was very much dominated by questions on the laws and policing and whether we hand that over to AI or if there's still a human element in it. Next up, there was also even more than one point about AI and its potential use in warfare. And lastly, there was a question on whether or not to ban mass surveillance in total. Itre, are you ready to respond to all of these points? You are recognized.
So first of all, I would like to thank all of you for the points raised. And I would like to thank you for the big engagement in our topic. It is very nice to hear and see. Excuse the background noise. And I will try my best to address all the points as best I can. So for those who questioned whether AI should be trusted completely, in our committee, we all agreed on the fact that AI still should have a human oversight or a human element in general involved in the loop, just mostly to make sure that it doesn't affect the lives of human beings in a negative aspect. Also, thank you. About the warfare and biometric mass surveillance, we strongly disagree with involvement of AI in these fields, since it is most likely that it would be misused and it would hugely violate human rights, fundamental human rights. I believe I am out of the time already, so that would be probably all.
Thank you very much for being so mindful of the time yourself. We will now move on to a great music intermission break while the Committee on Industry, Research and Energy consults about potential amendments. Thank you very much, Julia. I think we are slowly getting ready as the committee is running out of time. They should be coming back in a moment. Their tardiness might be due to intense discussions about an amendment, which I currently do not have the final phrasing for. But yes, I have been informed that the committee is amending their policy proposal number 5 to include a part on sustainability. A suggestion phrasing can be found in the chat. You can keep this in mind when you listen to the committee's sum up speech. I'll now be waiting for ITRE to be fully back in this room, and as soon as their hand is raised, we can continue to the summation speech. ITRE, are you here? Is your hand raised? Because I don't see it. Yes, there it is. ITRE, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me well. Honorable Board, distinguished guests, and fellow delegates, we've taken into account your proposals and we'll make sure to make AI more sustainable. We don't want any more trouble caused by AI, so we will emphasize finding sustainable cooling mechanisms and saving spaces. And also we should mention that development of AI will help us to reach sustainable development goals. But for now, I hope we all can take a moment to appreciate how far we've come. And I'm not only talking about this particular session, no. On a bigger scale, I want you all to truly think about the mind-blowing times we live in. Now, I know we rarely do what is told during summation speeches. I personally don't close my eyes and imagine something when speakers ask me to, but I bet I can point at one of you and assume that in the morning, your phone recognized your face, prepared a playlist of new songs you may like, and showed you a tempting advertisement of the movie you've discussed with your friend earlier. Pretty cool, I know, and also usual to us. But when my dad found out that his phone can talk to him, he said more dead dogs jokes during their conversation that I've ever heard in my life. So sometimes changes are too big to nest in minds immediately, and in such cases, we must help it. Our committee was challenged to face plenty of dilemmas artificial intelligence has brought up, and after rounds of complex yet beneficial debates, we hope that we all are on the same page. Why am I here then? Even though humans are, sure enough, amazing, we are still, well, humans, with a long history of conflicts and delusions, and artificial intelligence is one of my most beloved children of human mind, but sometimes offsprings inherit their parents' mistakes, fears, and traits. AI cannot be biased, unfair, or selfish, but its creators can. So AI became not only a helping hand, but also a dangerous tool. European Union has taken measures to ensure framing of AI-related issues, but some decisions are just not really fitting in. That's why I humbly encourage you to vote in favor of our resolution. Sometimes in the days of overwhelming transitions, the best thing we can do is holding on to some familiar values while being open for new ones. We don't want to stop the stream that is bringing us to a new world, but we also don't want to lose anyone on our way there. And some decisions had to be done so quickly that they failed to keep the precious balance between security that we mustn't ignore and innovation that we mustn't stop. We know that the change is never easy, but we hope that together we will find the courage to accept it and let it flourish for us. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for yet again another excellently timed speech. We will proceed to voting. First, we shall vote on the aim of the resolution. I am hoping that the poll is there in a moment. Yes, there it is. Please make up your mind whether you agree or disagree with the aim of this motion for a resolution. You have, I think, a bit less than a minute now. I see 49 votes. I would be hoping that there's a few more. 53, 56. I'm hoping you pump those numbers because these seem rookie numbers. Yes, we're at 61 now. 63. Are there any final votes? 65. The voting will be closing now. With 44 votes in favor, 18 against, and 4 abstentions, I'm happy to say that we can move on to the next vote, which is about the policy proposals. Keep in mind that this vote takes into consideration the amended clause number 5. So the full thing, including changes made by all of your contributions. We are aiming again at around 65, 66 votes. The faster, the better. We are at 59-61. Where is those last few votes? Get them in now. I'm sure you have an opinion on this, whether you are a fan of Skynet and the Terminator movies or not. Keeping in mind that this is not a resolution on Skynet. 64, 65, I think we have our results in. And it is my pleasure to announce that the motion for a resolution by the Committee on Industry, Research and Energy has passed with 36 votes in favor, 23 against, and 6 abstentions. Please put your hands together for this excellent work. Next up, as is common, we will take a short 5-minute break. We will reconvene at 12:15 Central European Summertime sharp, where the next chair of the debate, which is
me,
Thanos, will start off reading the next resolution. I'll see you all back here in 5 minutes.
All right, you guys better be back here because we are continuing. So to any chairs that are over here, please tell your delegates that they are already half a minute late. And to everybody who's already here but with your camera off, time to change that. Like me, I just noticed. There we go. So, lovely, lovely organizers, if you could get ready the context piece while I get ready the aim statement, or the topic statement, I should say, then we can get started with the next motion for resolution by the Committee on Security and Defense. The future of peace. With new and complex threats arising that destabilize the region and force thousands into migration, displacement, and statelessness, what should be Europe's strategy for ensuring peace, stability, and security at its borders? As always, the media team has prepared an amazing video to give some context to this topic, so that is what we are going to enjoy next.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Europe. You're now entering border control. But wait a second, are you refugees, internally displaced people, or maybe even stateless people? If you think you can just wander right through, you'd better think again. Border security, Europe's frontline ensuring peace, stability, and security at its borders.
Excuse me, Julia, can you hear me?
Julia, we have a point of personal privilege regarding the video from the media team. It seems like quite a few people are not able to see the screen, only hear the audio. So could you maybe please go from the start and see if we can fix this small technical issue?
Yes, coming. Just a sec. I'll try again. Let me know.
Absolutely no problem. Just we will tell you as soon as we can see the video.
Ladies and gentlemen,
just not yet.
Welcome to
Okay, then Danny is coming to fix it. Sorry.
Okay, perhaps you can try stopping the sharing and starting it over. All right, people, we've got it. The video is being checked. You can stop spamming the chat. Thank you very much. All right, we see the video now, which should be a good first start. Oh, now it's gone. Now it's back. And now it's working. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Europe. You're now entering border control. But wait a second, are you refugees, internally displaced people, or maybe even stateless people? If you think you can just wander right through, you'd better think again. Border security, Europe's frontline ensuring peace, stability, and security at its borders.
Aim of our resolution is separated in like 3 subtopics. The first one is to promote the dialogue between the member states in regards of a common European Union foreign policy. Second of all was to define what strategic autonomy is for all the member states, because there has been a lot of debate about it, because each member state has a different idea and a different definition for it. And lastly, to ensure the border security of Europe's external borders, while at the same time making sure that any incoming refugees or migrants are treated according to human rights principles. We just wanted to make sure that all sides of every possible argument are covered, both in border security and strategic autonomy, in relation with NATO, in relation with refugees and everything. So we just had to discuss a lot in order to make sure that everything is covered and nothing is being repeated all the time. You know, the different definitions of strategic autonomy that we found in our own research, plus the whole thing that's happening with NATO right now, kind of made things a little complicated and hard to handle and kind of define the problem itself and then find a possible solution. So I wouldn't say it caused an argument, it just needed more processing in order to like form it and phrase it as we should.
Thank you very much for yet another interesting and insightful context piece from the media team, and thank you for the organizers for fixing our technical issues so quickly. Now we will start the debate with the political position and the resolution aim for the Committee on Security and Defense. We start with a 3-minute proposition speech from the proposing committee. Are you ready to drop bombs, Setting? You are recognized. You have 3 minutes.
Dear Mr. Vice President, honorable members of the board and fellow delegates. First of all, thank you for securing the floor for us. I am truly honored and privileged to be standing here, addressing every one of you about the current and future threats that endanger the EU borders. We all know that communication is key, and that's why we try to get member states to communicate more efficiently in order to cooperate. Due to a stark contrast between foreign policy wishes, we aim to promote constructive dialogue, especially on the concept of sustainable European strategic autonomy. As we see tensions rising between member states on the role of NATO, we should find a common ground that not only diminishes those stresses, but allow member states to work closer together and to cooperate with each other. Secondly, the migrant crisis also pointed out a lot of flaws in our external border security, which caused a lot of harm to others. Consequently, we strive for the safeguarding of our external borders, while ensuring humanity and sustainability to refugees and migrants, but also citizens of our countries. Finally, our asylum infrastructure is outdated, which is putting a lot of stress on member states. Not only is it suffering under the increasing pressure due to the ongoing conflicts around the world, but it's also being worsened by the pandemic. More often than not, the asylum process is immensely ineffective due to the copious amounts of bureaucracy that also fails to rectify the situation of the stateless at our external borders. Furthermore, we fail to punish those who are responsible for this unsafe travel journey that refugees have to embark upon, as smugglers profit of their misfortune and misery. Sadly enough, we can't snap our problems away, but what we can do is raise our voices. Let us talk to the stars, and let our voices be carried by the wind to be heard by everyone out there. Our words of hope and encouragement should be listened to by the leaders. Our words should be listened to by the less fortunate. We should motivate those around us to stand up and take action, because we are the ones who lay the foundation for the future generations. Let us construct a stable basis, stronger than diamond, that allows future generations to build upon. Let us lay the foundation of a sustainable, peaceful world that's been portrayed in numerous songs like Imagine, One Love, We Are the World and Waving Flag. Let us provide the blueprint of the society we work towards to our children and grandchildren, and let them pass it on even further. Let us start building a society where we not only can connect countries, but also the hearts and minds of the people. Let us work towards that utopian goal, but most importantly, let us believe in the future, and let us be optimistic and hopeful. I hope that we can count on your support, and I'm looking forward to an interesting and civil discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sade, for this insightful and inspiring proposing speech, and also for staying within a time that is particularly always appreciated by the board. We will now move to the opposition speeches for this debate, and I would like to know if there are any opposition speeches during this debate. Let's see, I see a couple of raised hands here and there. All right, well, we are talking about security and defense, and this may not be the United States, but let's go with Econ 3 anyway. Econ 3, you're recognized.
Okay, sorry, my audio stopped working. Did you say Econ 3?
I did indeed.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry for the complications, technology. Anyways, dear Mr. Vice President, honorable members of the board, distinguished guests, and fellow delegates. I would like to thank the SEDE committee for creating a well thought out resolution that was obviously made with only the best intentions. However, it seems that they forgot to concentrate on one thing, to focus on the core of the problematic, which are the reasons people have to migrate from the problematic states into the EU. The same reasons that make us create refugee camps, battle populism, racism, and work on EYP resolutions that focus on countering human trafficking, protecting our borders, and maintaining human rights. As long as people will have to escape, we will have to constantly combat new and new issues instead of finding sustainable, long-term solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for an opposition speech that was short and sweet. We will now take a second opposition speech from your sister committee, or maybe it's a brother committee. Let's say a sibling committee, Econ 1. Econ 1, you are recognized.
Thank you for your recognition. Dear President, fellow delegates, I do first of all want to congratulate the fellow delegates of SEDE for approaching such a difficult and divisive topic, and for coming up with what I personally think is a great resolution. Peace, stability, and security are to be achieved through a constructive dialogue among member states, and I greatly appreciate you stating it. I do, however, think that the time to talk is over, and some action is very much needed. You acknowledge discrepancies in foreign policy aspirations of different member states, but you do not come up with new and effective tools the EU could use to overrun them. I do support your encouragement on the Neighbourhood Development and International Cooperation Instrument, but I do believe you could have gone a bit further. For example, I believe in a strengthening of the role of the High Representative of the Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, who could fit in your resolution as a strong political figure able to create consensus around your policy proposals. I also have to note that you failed to mention in your overall strategy some kind of economic and political support for communities which are directly affected by migration in border areas, even though you acknowledge that their infrastructure is continuously under mounting pressure. Moreover, having seen how the Turkish government has used the migration crisis as a bargaining tool to keep the European institutions and governments in check, I believe that it is in the best interest of both the EU and the immigrants to rediscuss new terms of the 2016 EU-Turkey Migration Agreement, rather than trying to build on what I believe is an agreement that only delays the effect of a problem we should be tackling now.
Please summarize.
Yes, to conclude on the same footnote as my fellow delegate from Econ 1, I'd like to say that your committee has served us a great pizza. You just put a little too much pineapple on it. Thank you.
I was going to thank you for this speech until I think you incurred the anger from all Italians, and now I have to be very careful with how I thank you. But once again, nonetheless, thank you for drawing the attention to, for instance, the position of the High Representative VP. We will now move back to the Committee on Security and Defense to very accurately defend itself from these attacks. Sede, are you ready? I see a raised hand. I will take that as a yes. You are recognized and you have 1 minute.
Dear Mr. Vice President, thank you for the recognition. First things first, I would like to say that we don't have much pineapple on our pizza. We attempted to take out as much of it, and I think we succeeded fairly well. For the first opposition speech, the only thing I would like to mention is that you apparently have not read our policy proposals numbers 11 and 12, which tackle the issue which you have talked about. For the second opposition speech of Econ 1, you say that action is needed regarding new effective tools of deciding foreign policy, for example. Unfortunately, we as the European as EYP, we are not able to tell member states what their foreign policy aspirations should be. Though we have the representative for this matter, often what happens is that foreign policy aspirations of member states are not the same as what this representative represents. You mentioned an overall strategy for infrastructure under pressure. I feel there was a bit of misunderstanding, as the infrastructure we mentioned is more in regards to the infrastructure of the camps on the borders. And basically, we tackled that several times in our policy proposals. You also mentioned new terms for the EU-Turkey migration agreement. I would suppose this is more of a phrasing problem, as by building on it, we don't mean adding things, but by building on it, we mean taking what's good in it, say,
Please
making
conclude.
a better version and assuring that it works sustainably. Thank you.
Thank you indeed. We will now move on to the first round of open debate on the political position and the resolution aim of the motion for resolution from the Committee on Security and Defense. And we will do so by beginning with a point from NV2. You are recognized. NV2, do you have a point to present?
Thank you for the recognition. Sorry, my mic was malfunctioning. Okay, so your aim seems to rely on the fact that all member states would be willing to collaborate on how to manage borders and refugees. I doubt this would be the case, as we have already seen during the migration crisis of 2015 that, for example, Hungary broke EU and Schengen law and started building border barriers and deporting refugees to neighboring countries. How are you thinking of collaborating on an EU level for external borders when even the agreement on internal borders isn't adhered? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Casper from NV2, for asking about the reliability and the likeliness of cooperation within the EU. We will now move on to a point from regional development, followed by culture and education. Reggie, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you for recognizing me. I would like to notify the committee stating that you have missed a crucial problem that is happening in Europe today. Border patrol officers have stereotypical views on refugees and therefore are more inclined to torture them or treat them in an unjust manner. And I think you should have recognized this and addressed this in both your aim and your because clauses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reggie, for drawing our attention to prejudice that may exist with Border Patrol. And I see that we already have a direct response from the Committee on Civil Liberties, Justice and Home Affairs. So, Libe, I'm very curious to see what you have to add to that. You're recognized.
Building off of border control guards having stereotypical views, I feel something that wasn't addressed in your aims is the criminalization of volunteers and NGOs. I'm thinking particularly of the Sean Binder case in 2018, where 2 volunteers who were helping refugees get from drowning to the border were incarcerated for over 100 days. Could this be addressed more directly in your aims?
Thank you very much. I see that this is definitely drawing the attention of quite a few. I guess you could say that it is on the radar of SEDE. So SEDE, you are recognized for a direct response.
Thank you. First things first, I would like to say that we do talk about these things in our policy proposals. Second of all, the point of NGOs being criminalized for attempting to help migrants cross across the sea is not exactly the point of our topic. It is not mentioned in our topic. It is not something we are supposed to be taking care of in our resolution. And for Frontex and border guards having or torturing the refugees, we do mention that. We want to. I just need to find it quickly, but we want to strengthen the role of fundamental rights officer in the management of Frontex, which would take care of the officers, or which would get rid of officers who don't act the way they should. And there is another, we want to make the decisions taken by Frontex and basically what happens in Frontex available to the European Parliament and to journalists as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sede, for telling us that this perhaps does not entirely fall within the scope of your topic. However, it seems like Econ 2 is not in agreement, or maybe they are. I don't know. Let's find out. Econ 2, you're recognized.
About what you said, thank you for recognition, about what you said about overseeing officer.
but that will not be enough because because there is no legal basis for Frontex, because they are more of an international organization and they cannot be held accountable in one nation. And the EU hasn't signed the European Human Rights Convention, so they technically don't have to follow human rights, which is a huge problem. And only implementing an overseeing officer will probably not be enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that direct response, Econ 2. We really enjoy that this debate is already getting so lively. We will now, seeing how no other direct responses are coming in for now, move on as promised to the Committee on Culture and Education. Kult, you are recognized.
Yes, thank you. I wasn't sure if I should direct response to this, but I will continue with my point, which was related to what was already said about, firstly, by the first opposition speech by Econ, and surrounding the prejudice and the feel of the European population, which I feel was not addressed enough. And I know you mentioned that this does not necessarily concern your resolution, but I don't see how you can assure stability at the borders if the people that actually vote the measures taken are not sensibilized and informed as to the stigma of surrounding migrants, especially children from war zones. And I feel like of course, the resolution really focuses on the dialogue between states, but it lacks to focus on the dialogue between people who actually vote these measures. And I know you mentioned OC 11 and 12, but I struggle to see how it can effectively help this dialogue as people who, they're not necessarily informed on, people are usually informed through social media, as we know, which emphasizes radical views. And thank you. Hope that was clear enough.
Thank you very much. It really does seem that this point is drawing a lot of attention from all over the place, because we now have a direct response from NV1. NV1, you're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. First, I'd like to build up on what my fellow delegate just said, and I'd like to start by saying that your intro to the statement does include peace, stability, and security. That's why I would like to draw your attention to what my fellow delegate said. It's not just about the fact that people who work at borders have stigma around refugee and asylum seekers, but it's about the people who live in a country where people move. For example, the citizens of the country where asylum seekers tend to go to. There are a lot of countries where there's a huge stigma for that people, even in my country. And I feel like it's something that you don't address in your because clauses and in your aims, which is why I feel like it should be included, the fact that there's a huge stigma, not only for people who work at the borders, but in the people of the country they are entering. Thank you.
Thank you very much, NV1, for drawing our attention to this important distinction. We have had quite a few points in this round of open debate, and it seems like we're going to have one more, because there is yet another direct response, this time from NV1's sister committee, NV2. You're recognized.
Thank you for your recognition. I also want to my fellow delegates that also quite impossible and hard to control the situation, how they treat the people. I think.
I'm very sorry. It seems like we had some difficulties with the connection there. Could you maybe turn off your video and try to summarize your point so that the General Assembly can respond to it adequately?
Sure. I'm sorry about that. Is the audio okay now?
Much better. Thank you. Please continue.
Okay. So I also wanted to build upon everyone's point and say that it is actually also hard to control how the people who are in charge of that will treat people on the borders, and this issue has also have to be tackled as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can already say, wow, we had 5 direct responses in just the first round of the open debate. To clarify the work for SEDE just a little bit, let me quickly summarize what we have discussed, and then you can respond. So we talked about NV1's original point on the reliance on political cooperation and how unlikely this may be. And then we talked for a very long time about the prejudice that may exist in one form or another in those officers and or leadership at Frontex and other border securities that are responsible for enforcing EU border law. SEDE had already addressed this with a direct response, but the General Assembly was not yet satisfied and kept debating this point. So SEDE, are you ready for round 2 to go into the counter attack and see if you can outflank the GA on this point anyway? You are recognized.
Thank you, honorable members of the board and fellow delegates. Regarding the first measures of Frontex holding accountable for their action, we actually mentioned that in our policy, which I want you to read our resolution more specifically, because we actually mentioned the Frontex issue. Regarding migration and asylum, that's not actually our policy to do. We have more of a strategic autonomy. That's our thing to point out, and migration and integration and all those parts aren't actually our things to do. We will always want to ensure stability and prevent further crisis in the long term and even in the short term. But for that to be managed, we want to unite and promote dialogue to tackle pressuring issues. And regarding human rights and Frontex officers, we want to hold them accountable for their actions. And we also mentioned that by enduring other non-government organizations and journalists to ensure that their work are doing according to the human rights. If there are any other issues, I want you to read our resolution more precise, because we mention a lot of the migration acts, a lot of the asylum and the Frontex issues in the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we have a direct response from Cult, and before I assign it, I want to make sure that it was about the last point addressed in the response to the open debate. Is that the case? If so, then Cult is recognized. Cult, do you still have a direct response?
Sorry, I had technical issues. Yes, I believe it's related to what was said before. I know that integration is not part of your resolution. However, what I meant to say was that you still have people in Europe that see migrants being badly treated at borders, that see this Frontex, as was mentioned before, torture and aggression.
I'm sorry, this point does not seem to be relating to the last point that was made during the response to the open debate.
Sorry, it was.
That is okay. I just want to point out that these direct responses are really for just the very last point. Otherwise, I'm afraid that it will derail the debate too much. So no problem, these things can happen. But with that said, we will now move on to the policy proposals part of this debate. And we will do so with an introduction from SEDE to the operative section if they are ready. SEDE, you are recognized. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you for recognizing me, honorable members of the board, distinguished chairpersons, and fellow delegates. Building upon Kobe's speech, I will now draw attention to the 4 key topics our solution falls under. Firstly, member states need to talk. We, as European countries, have different foreign policy aspirations, different views on the notion of strategic autonomy, and experience the refugees problem to different extents. The ongoing conference on the future of Europe, mentioned in the OC 1 and 2, is thus the perfect opportunity to look at the long-term future of the EU. Secondly, our border security is threatened, yet Frontex expanded activities have human rights implications. The agency has moved far beyond a merely coordinating role and now engages in activities such as combating crime. OCs 5, 6, 7, and 8 aims at solving this repressive turn of Frontex by increasing transparency and devising proper means of accountability with the EU Commission. Then, multiple challenges lie ahead for the EU, neighboring conflicts, the COVID-19 pandemic, the prediction of climate refugees. OCs 11, 12, and 13 talks about the need for further investigation and good practices that the EU should follow. EU-Syrian Conference and the EU-Turkey Migration Agreement are valuable instruments in this way. Lastly, we focus on the refugee problem. Avoiding human trafficking and lengthy administrative procedures at EU borders, we ensure them a safe and effective experience. This would be solved through OCs 14, 16, 17, and 18. Then we need to invest in asylum infrastructure and work alongside NGOs to provide them with food, clothes, healthcare, legal aid, visas that they need, as mentioned in OCs 4, 9, 10, and 15. Oh, and regarding OC 15, the 2020 Migration and Asylum Pact is the key to address all of the above. It's a yet to be approved instrument that we urge every member state to vote in favor of. To conclude, this problem won't be solved unless member states talk about their position on strategic autonomy and hopefully find middle ground. Frontex duties are devised to reduce unsafe and irregular routes, and refugees are given what they need: a more efficient and fair migration process and sustainable and safe legal pathways. The way to do all of the above, as well as mitigating the future conflicts, is by implementing our solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It really looks like the SEDE army is a well-oiled machine commanded by General Lessinger himself. Very excited to see how this debate is going on. And with that, we will now open the second round of the open debate, starting with a point from Econ 2. You're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. Sede, in your policy proposals, you failed to tackle the most monumental problem, that is that human traffickers adapt their markets to current environments. Human traffickers will raise their prices per migrant, as they did in the 2016-2015 influx, and profit even more than the 330 million euros you've mentioned in your because clauses. You failed to recognize this issue, and you failed to tackle the exploitation of migrants effectively in your policy proposals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will move on to a point from Sibling Committee Econ 3, followed by Industry, Research and Energy. Econ, you are recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. I want to thank the committee for writing a very detailed proposal. However, I would like you to address the fact that currently one of the biggest problems with the refugee crisis is that countries that have conservative governments do not want to accept immigrants to their country. You offer no solution to this problem in your proposal. If you could address that, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you for drawing our attention to the political dimensions of this issue. As promised, we will now move on to ITRE, and after that we will see. ITRE, you're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition, Mr. Vice President. I would like to ask SEDE about on their long-term plan for the bureaucratic processes for asylum seekers, knowing and being aware that the procedures might be even more delayed because of the COVID pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is with great pleasure that I can announce that the next point is going to be from PESH. Seeing how I am all about those funds, I feel like the only connection between SEDE and PESH is a submarine joke. So please turn on your sonar and make your point, PESH. You're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. So I want everyone to look at clause 12b, and I just feel like refocusing diplomatic missions from other countries to the neighboring countries will be, you know, it will be met with debate from both sides, because I don't know, I mean, if you're relocating funds from one thing to another, there will always be backlash. So I would propose or I would propose an amendment for this thing that you would say we meant to increase diplomatic relations in the neighboring countries instead of reallocating diplomatic missions from other countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this constructive contribution, even going as far as to suggest an amendment. I see that the officials are not happy with my puns. They are torpedoing my sense of humor. So I think that it's best if we probably just go back to the SEDE committee for a response to the open debate. Are you ready to do so? You're recognized. Is there a member of the proposing committee ready to respond?
Yeah, thank you for the floor. Thank you for the recognition. Dear delegates, dear honorable member of the board, first, thank you for your interest in our subject, a subject.
I'm sorry, we have a point of personal privilege, or better known as a poop. Could you please unmute yourself and yes, thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you for recognition, dear Vice President, honorable members of the board, fellow delegates. Thank you for your interest in our subject, a subject of huge importance regarding our future. But about what says about Eco 2 and Econ 3, for Eco 2, just it's in our OCs 16 and 17. And about Econ 3, what they said is already tackled in Migration Pack. About E3, it's very quickly tackled in our OCs too. So I see your points and they're very good, but just please read again OCs before proposing our points. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for responding also to the constructive criticism that was given during this debate, pointing our attention to the clauses that are already included. And with that, we can move to the third round of the open debate, and we will kick it off as is a little bit of a tradition now with a point from Econ, to be specific, Econ 1. You're recognized.
Thank you. I would like to draw the attention to the clause 13, and I would like to suggest that we propose a more aggressive policy towards Turkey, because we saw during the first months of 2020, Turkey used many immigrants as a political weapon against Greece, and giving them money to create facilities for refugees is not vital. It's better to give those funds to EU countries that already have a big population of refugees. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Econ 1. We will now move on with a point from NV1. And after that, we will continue looking around for the next points. So NV1, you're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. I wanted to draw my concern to the committee's apparent disregard for migrants who are currently in the asylum seeking system. I'm coming from a country that requires urgent change in terms of our asylum system. It was established over 2 decades ago as a quote unquote short-term solution, but it is still in place today, and it is quite simply dehumanizing, and it does not uphold the migrants' fundamental human rights. I do appreciate that the committee have taken every opportunity to protect potential future migrants, but I'm disappointed that they have made no immediate attempt to change the existing systems, and I was wondering if I could get some clarification on their intentions.
Thank you very much about once again drawing the attention to the structural aspects of this topic. Now, I see that there was a direct response from PESH, which, however, I only saw after the representative from the ENVI committee had already started talking. Is this direct response request still valid, PESH? I can give you a second or two to communicate among yourselves, PESH, and after that your chairperson Sander can let us know if the request for a direct response is still valid. If we don't receive anything, then
no.
No? Okay, thank you very much. We will in that case continue with a point from NV2. NV2, you're recognized.
Thank you. I want to make a point on policy proposal number 18B, I guess. Again, how exactly are you planning to avoid trafficking when unfortunately statistics show that there still is an ongoing situation in Ukraine, for example, which is a EU country and shows the highest risks of human trafficking? Thank you.
Thank you very much for drawing our attention to one of the neighboring states of the EU, Ukraine, which is very close, of course, to the EU, and drawing our attention to the human trafficking problems in that country. Next up, we will have a point from Civil Liberties, Justice and Home Affairs. Libe, you're recognized.
Thank you. We have heard a lot in this debate about how we feel that this resolution is focusing on the consequences of immigration and on the refugee crisis rather than solving the root problems, which is obviously a problem since we need to be creating sustainable solutions. I believe that this is extremely relevant in clause 11, where they intend to invest more research as to prevent humanitarian crises. Yes, I believe that we do need to prevent these crises because doing so would massively reduce the number of refugees. However, I don't think that we need to do any more research. Not only are there so many research foundations already being funded in this area, but we are also already aware of crises that aren't being solved, that we would be able to implement infrastructure to solve. I believe that instead of investing in research, we should invest in solutions that we are already aware of. If this resolution is meant to last to 2050, then we need to start taking action now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a very elaborate point, talking about the sustainability of the policy proposals from SEDE. We've had one more very active round of open debate talking about structural problems, trafficking, human trafficking in the European neighborhood, and sustainable solutions to the problems highlighted by SEDE. We can now take a response to this round of open debate from the proposing committee. Security and defense, you are recognized.
Ooh, sorry. Okay. So first things first, the Migration Pact 2020, it's not addressed enough. It has all of the things that we talked about. It has better asylum procedures, faster asylum procedures. And the issue here is that it's not accepted yet. So we, instead of creating a whole new asylum project, we decided to make everyone vote for it because it's already there. There's an absolutely detailed framework on how Europe is going to tackle the immigrants. And about Turkey, Turkey is 4.5 million refugees in Turkey. The amount of refugees in Turkey exceeds all of the refugees in Europe. And Turkey is not capable of caring for the refugees on their own. And the European Union needs to continue helping them. Otherwise, we know what Turkey can do by opening their borders. It's not a stable country right now. And for the human trafficking, we talked about the prevention of it in OCs 12 and 16. And I really need people to decide whether we are not talking about the roots enough or the consequences enough, because our resolution tackles both of these issues. And the naval mission, according to EU reports, the EU naval mission avoids human traffickers. So we mentioned it in our OC as well. So we tackle the human trafficking problem in our OCs. I encourage all of you to read it more detailed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sede. I very much appreciate the fervor with which you defend your committee. I just want to point out that although it can be frustrating when it seems like other committees have not read your resolution properly or they don't understand it as well as you do, I can assure you that everybody in this debate has read every resolution that we are debating on. So that is just one quick point that I want to make as we go into the last round of open debate, which can be on the aims, the mission, direction or the policy proposals. And why would you change a winning team? We are going to start once again with a point from Econ. Econ 2 to be precise. You're recognized.
Thank you for recognition. While reading your policy, your aims, I discovered that you don't really mention the most vulnerable groups, such as minors, elders, families who are divided, or people with disabilities and people with poor health. And do you plan to implement any special care towards those groups? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We can move on to a point from regional development. Reggie, you're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. I'd like to draw your attention to clause 6, where the committee enforces that the European Parliament should be informed about the decisions taken by Frontex. However, according to Frontex themselves, they are held accountable by the European Commission and the European Parliament. Many areas of activity of Frontex directly report to the European Parliament. Frontex executive directors regularly attend European Parliament committee hearings, and they send annual activity reports to the European Parliament and European Commission and annual work reports to the European Commission. How do you think this is relevant if this is already in practice and already successful? Thank you.
Thank you for an elaborate backstory and a concrete question to the proposing committee. We will now move on to a point from ITRE. You're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. I have a problem with point 13, in which the CD Commission requests to build on the 2016 EU-Turkey migration agreement. This agreement in of itself violates the human right of asylum, so that is a big problem. And further, the prospect of a significant resettlement to Syria for the refugees which currently reside within Turkey is not that feasible. So I think, considering this, that we should focus on implementing resolutions which help these refugees create a life for themselves outside of Syria, instead of continuing the policies which only cause further dependency on humanitarian aid from the West. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we will move on to one last point in this last round of open debate. And it can be no surprise that as soon as the EU naval mission is included, that we would come out eventually with PESH once again. You're recognized.
Thank you for the recognition. I hope I'm heard correctly. In your resolution, you mentioned a lot of things about the improvement of infrastructure and of facilities, especially in the asylums and in the borders. But at least how I see it, you never mentioned specifically how they will be funded, by which actor specifically from the EU, and how they will be managed, because there is a severe lack. There is a problem of mismanagement of funds from the EU and by the member states, of course. So we would really appreciate if you could elaborate on this factor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophia from PESH, with a response